Saxony, officially the Free State of Saxony, is a landlocked state of Germany, bordering the states of Brandenburg, Saxony-Anhalt, Thuringia, and Bavaria, as well as the countries of Poland and the Czech Republic. Its capital is Dresden, and its largest city is Leipzig. Saxony is the 10th largest of Germany's 16 states, with an area of 18,413 square kilometers, and the 6th most populous, with more than 4 million inhabitants. Before 1806, Saxony was part of the Holy Roman Empire, a 1,000-year-old entity that had become highly decentralized over the centuries. The Kingdom of Saxony was a German monarchy in Central Europe between 1806 and 1918, the successor of the Electorate of Saxony. It joined the Confederation of the Rhine after the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire, later joining the German Confederation after Napoleon was defeated in 1815. In 1918, as a result of a revolution set off in the days before Germany's defeat in World War I, King Frederick Augustus III of Saxony followed him into abdication when workers' and soldiers' councils were set up in the cities of Dresden, Chemnitz and Leipzig. Within the newly formed Weimar Republic, on the 1st of November 1920, the Kingdom of Saxony was reorganized into the Free State of Saxony. The last woman who was publicly executed in the Kingdom of Saxony was Marie Margarete Grete Beier. A public execution is a form of capital punishment which members of the general public may voluntarily attend. This definition excludes the presence of only a small number of witnesses called upon to assure executive accountability. The purpose of such displays has historically been to deter individuals from defying laws or authorities. Attendance at such events was historically encouraged and sometimes even mandatory. Grete Beier was born the 15th of September 1885 in Branderbisdorf, a small town just outside Dresden. She was a strikingly good-looking girl, a typical blonde, blue-eyed Saxon, of somewhat buxom figure. She was noted in Brand for her good humor, friendly disposition, and tasteful clothes, in which she displayed a partiality for light-colored silks. She was always accompanied by a powerful St. Bernard dog. Her father, once a coal miner, became head of the town savings bank, and eventually burgomaster. He left a considerable fortune. But, following his death, irregularities were discovered which caused some suspicions as to his business integrity. The mother, who was seriously involved in her daughter's embezzlement and forgery accusations, came from a cobbler's family. Although Grete was engaged to the engineer Pressler, whom she shot in May 1907, after blindfolding him on the pretense that he was to have a pleasant surprise, she had continued since 1906 a former intimacy of some years standing with Miker, as the result of which 2 dead children were born. All her life she has moved in cultured and educated circles. She went to the Beat schools, enjoyed exceptional advantages, and was accomplished in music and art. For years she cleverly concealed her double. At 17 she entered into improper relations with a young Dresden commercial traveler named Merker. 3 children were born to them and she murdered each immediately after birth, it is claimed. She disposed of the infants so skillfully that no suspicions were excited. While still carrying on her intrigue with Merker, her parents introduced her to a wealthy engineer named Pressler, hoping that she might make a good match. Pressler became infatuated with her and they were betrothed. All the time she was continuing her relations with Merker, and together they were plotting how they could obtain possession of Pressler's fortune. Grete, her mother, and Miker were arrested on charges of forgery of a will in connection with the mysterious death of Herr Kranner, superintendent of the local poorhouse, a wealthy relative of the Beiers. Grete subsequently confessed that she had killed Pressler after having forged his will, written a letter indicating that he had taken his own life, and left the pistol beside his bed in a position suggesting suicide. After her arrest in June 1907, an illegal abortion trial was also initiated. Shortly after, Merker was also arrested. In November of that year, Beier confessed to the murder of Pressler. She was found guilty and sentenced to death. After a petition for mercy was rejected by the king, Beier was guillotined on the 23rd of July 1908 at the age of 22 years by the state executioner, Moritz Brand, on the scaffold in the courtyard of the district court at the Albert Park in Freiburg. Her execution took place on the morning of July 23, 1908 in the yard of the regional court building before some 190 people. The guillotine had been erected earlier in a corner of the yard, and at around 6:25 a.m., the public prosecutor, Dr. Mannel, the judges who had heard her case, including their chairman Dr. Rudert, and the 12 official witnesses came into the yard. The public prosecutor and the judges all wore their official robes. At precisely 6:30 a.m., a bell was rung as the signal to bring out the prisoner. She was led through the gardens by her lawyer and the prison chaplain, her hands folded and her eyes on the ground, walking slowly but upright and unaided. She was very pale but seemed calm and showed no emotion. She wore a black dress that had been cut down at the neck. She was led onto the platform of the guillotine by the executioner and his assistant, and strapped to the board, which was then tilted into the horizontal and slid forward, so that she could now see directly into the bucket in which her head would land. This was too much for Grete, who was beginning to lose her composure. She cried out, "Father, into your hands I lay my soul, Father." The upper part of the neck ring had been closed about her, and at this moment the blade fell. In the yard of the district court building gathered about 200 gentlemen, under them numerous officers of the local battalion, law officers, different members of the jury, teachers of the local high school, physicians, etc. In the corner at the wing center the guillotine had been erected. The side door in the wing of the public prosecutor's office opened 5 minutes before 6:30 p.m., and led from the public prosecutor, Dr. Mannel, prosecutor in the murder trial against Grete Beier, the judges under her chairman Dr. Rudert, as well as the 12 witnesses, Mr. Oberstadt-Sanwalt Bernhard, the mayor of Blücher, and some other gentlemen came out. The public prosecutor as well as the judges were robed. Some fearful seconds passed. The public prosecutor spoke still few words with the national executioner, who was waiting dressed in black together with its 2 assistants at the stairs of the guillotine. At precisely 6:30 a strident bell sound gave the signal to the start of the prisoner's last walk. Everyone's look was directed to the backside from where, through flowering gardens, the condemned was supposed to appear. Slowly she came along, at her side her defender in the robe, Mr. Rechtsanwalt Dr. Noel from Dresden, to her left the prison parson in his ornate, Mr. Pastor Schmidt, which gave to the condemned woman words of courage and comfort. Grete Beier kept the hands folded and looked to the ground, but she walked upright, the head slightly inclined forward. Just as in the 2-day trial, nothing in her face betrayed the feelings of the murderess. She was completely calm, and this stony calmness looked almost frightful. Slowly, almost hesitating, she walked forward. On her black dress, the neck was exposed. Thus she approached the prosecutor and the judges. Public prosecutor Dr. Mannel stepped forwards. With elevated voice spoke he the following: Maria Margarete Beier from Erbisdorf has been condemned to death by the District Court of Freiburg. The judgment has been confirmed. His Majesty the King did not feel compelled to make use of the power of pardon. Therefore the judgment is to be carried out. Mr. Landesscharführer Brandt, I transfer the delinquent to you. In the meantime the clergyman and the defender had withdrawn. The executioner and an assistant slowly led the condemned to the scaffold and the 5 steps up. Grete Beier approached the scaffold, whose platform had been provided with an added step in order to adapt it to the small stature of the condemned. What followed now took place quickly. The buckles closed behind the back of the delinquent. The board was tilted into horizontal position. Then the girl called out. It sounded fearful, anguished, like a long-retained despair. "Father, into your hands I lay my soul, Father." Then the neck ring closed and the blade rushed down. The executioner took off his hat and announced to the public prosecutor, "Herr Staatsanwalt, the judgment is executed." The last act, from the instant when the young woman left the prison building up to the execution, took only 3 minutes. The public prosecutor requested the people who were present at the execution to depart calmly. When the witnesses of the execution left by a side way, in which already waited the flower-decorated hearse, which will bring the body of Grete Beier to Dresden, a huge crowd waited outside. Her body was buried beside the grave of the father. Grete Beier remained until her death an unresolved mystery. Until her last minute she showed a self-control which a man in the same condition would hardly have shown. Grete Beier, the 22-year-old daughter of the mayor of Freiburg in Saxony, was guillotined for the murder of her fiancé, a civil engineer named Profler, whom she had poisoned for financial gain. Thank you for watching Death Row.